Let's talk about shadow work. But first, a little preliminary information, and I promise that it will be related. The earliest stages of my spiritual awakening involved this unquenchable thirst for knowledge, and it propelled me into years of extensive research on a wide range of different topics, not just spiritual. A lot of it was science. One of the ones that I became very interested in was true human history. Through the rabbit holes of research that I went down, it became extremely clear to me that in Western society anyway, developed cultures, we have not been taught true human history, nor have we been accurately taught human evolution. I kept getting this message from Spirit that humanity has been in a persistent, repeating cycle of forgetting itself. Remembering and then forgetting, over and over again, for like millions of years. This is how old we actually are. This is nothing new though. Hindu cosmology is based on exactly this cyclical concept. We are currently in a destruction phase, which is called the Kali Yuga, which is said to gradually cause complete destruction in around 428,800 years from now. And then this will birth the new golden age. In Norse mythology, they talk about Ragnarok, which is the final destruction of the world. And in the Hopi and Navajo prophecies, we're moving towards our fourth destruction, which will result in our fifth world, which is really, really interesting because the whole heaven on earth expectation that many ancient scriptures write about is actually a fifth dimensional consciousness. And of course, there is the very well-known Christian prophecy of the end times. Basically, every culture around the globe has some sort of story about the future destruction of the world. But what's interesting is I was consistently getting this feeling from Spirit that we're giving the opportunity to not have to experience destruction this time. We are being given the opportunity, humanity as a whole, to finally get off this hamster wheel, of time, which would effectively end time. Get it? We would enter into a fifth dimensional consciousness, which exists outside the third dimensional construct of time. So when you move out of third dimensional consciousness, you exist in an eternal now. If you've ever watched near-death experiences from people who have gone over to the other side temporarily and then they came back in their bodies, they talk about this eternal now, that everything is just now. When we get off this hamster wheel, time will end. The end of time. End times. But it starts with the individual. As more and more people get off this hamster wheel and step outside of time, these individual evolutions will eventually evolve humanity as a whole out of these karmic cycles. And we avoid our fourth destruction or millionth destruction, whichever cosmology you want to go by. How do we do this? Through generational curse breaking and ancestral healing. Curse gets a really interesting reaction from people, but all it is a binding. Any behavior, belief system, thought process, or tradition that gets passed down through generation to generation from parent to child that creates restriction within a person or the family line as a whole and prevents authentic expression in the now, in the present, then it is a curse. It doesn't matter if a witch casted it or people chasing after ancestors with pitchforks. It doesn't matter how it was created. That's basically all it is. It's a binding. And we all have them. Every family line does. Especially the people on this YouTube channel, because in my last video, Becoming the Family Scapegoat, I talked about how I've finally realized that I'm here to help the black sheep. You don't need to be a black sheep of the family, though, to be able to acknowledge the fact that there are toxic behaviors, patterns, and thought processes in your family. I mean, whatever holiday you celebrate is coming up. Just sit back and watch the show, bring some popcorn. These curses get passed down unknowingly and knowingly. Parents will often purposely say, if you really think about it, messed up things to their kids because they think it will keep them safe. But really what it does, it just instills fear. And what is the one thing that causes these bindings? Fear. Every time. Fear is the disease that is fueling all of humanity's problems, and I mean literally all of them. Fear is the darkness. Fear is the enemy. And this is where shadow work comes in, working with our shadows, working with our fears. Shadow work is basically synonymous with the stages of spiritual alchemy, the process of knowing oneself. Peeling off all those onion layers I talked about in the What is Shadow Work video that I made, until you finally get to the core of who you actually are. You take off everything that society, all those bindings that your family put on, every social expectation that doesn't fit on you, you take it all off and you become who you actually are, the authentic version of you. That's what the process of shadow work is for. So that these bindings and these belief systems and these stupid societal requirements that aren't even real rules aren't dictating your life anymore. And you're actually living the life the way that you want to live it on your terms. It's the process of unearthing, recognizing, loving, and then reintegrating the hidden parts of yourself. Many people refer to this as facing our demons. Demons and fears are basically synonymous. There are a lot of people that would argue that demons are real though, they're not just fears. Negative entities attach themselves to a person through their fears. That is the resonance that causes that attachment, right? These demons need an invitation. Fear is that invitation. Fear is that back door that they crawl into. If you've ever seen a horror movie where demons are involved, once you say the demon's name, it loses its power. Once we recognize the fear, we face it and we name it for what it is, this pattern of behavior that we have created around this fear starts to unravel itself. As soon as you recognize a pattern, it starts to unravel. The fear and the demon, whether there was a demon there or not, it doesn't really matter, because once you address that fear, that demon is gone. He's got nothing to hold on to anymore. You focus on the fear, everything else rectifies itself. And as we start facing our fears, our masks start to fall off. These pretend ways that we behave in public so that people think we're normal or tough or smart or like we have our shit together, really, but like no one does. These are just masks. These are facades that we're wearing. Most people actually don't realize they're wearing masks because we've forgotten who we are due to years of social conditioning. Most of the things that we suppress about ourselves are actually good things. We've just been brainwashed, frightened, or abused into believing that they are bad. The truth is that nothing is ever really hidden, right? It festers in the background for years, slowly making us sick and mentally ill until we either look at it or we die, decrepit and spiritually bankrupt. Make your choice. Radical self-love and acceptance is a major requirement when doing this work, because shame and judgment are what created these masks in the first place, right? You feel shameful about some aspect of your personality, and so you hide it. We have to be willing to remember the good in the unloved parts of ourselves, or the shadows will remain. I'm going to make a series of videos talking about shadow work because it is a journey. It took me years of introspection and self-reflection to get where I am today. And this is a continuous process that I'm still going through. I'm still learning new ways to be who I actually am and to blaze this trail of authenticity. My process of shadow work started in the winter of 2020 when I was pregnant with my first child. And I started feeling very unsafe with the father of my child. Check out my video titled Losing My Daughter if you want to learn what happened there. My relationship with this person was always tumultuous, but I put up with it, right? Because I could, it was just me. But at this time I was pregnant, I started nesting, the motherly instincts started turning on, and I just couldn't make my space safe. I couldn't make my mind safe. I couldn't make him safe. I couldn't make my environment safe. And I started panicking like any animal in the wild would when they realize that they have to have a baby when they're living with a predator. But what's interesting is I recognized this feeling of panic and impending doom. It was a feeling that I hadn't felt in a really long time, like a really long time. And I barely remembered it. But somehow I knew that this was a feeling from my own childhood. This feeling like I wasn't safe anywhere. And then my child died. Then eventually the father of my child moved out, and I started to make my home safe again, and I started to crawl my way out of major depression. And you can check out all those videos as well if you want to see how I did that. This is when I began experiencing what I later realized was delayed onset post-traumatic stress disorder symptoms. I began having dreams about childhood abuse, but these dreams felt like memories. And then actual memories did start flooding in during my waking state. It was extremely disturbing. And I had a really hard time with the information at first. I did not want to believe that these were real memories. Some of them I knew they were, but the really bad ones, I was like, this couldn't possibly have happened to me. This is horrendous. They plagued my thoughts and disrupted my sleep, and it was tough. But I eventually did accept that these were real memories. Some of them I had suppressed for like 31 years. After this acceptance, I started to become curious. Curiosity is key to shadow work, like really wondering why we do and feel and experience the things that we do. That's the only way that we're going to unravel these hidden parts of self, because it sends a cue to your mind that even though you may be afraid, you're willing to explore and learn and to have compassion for yourself. And as soon as I become curious about anything, really, Spirit steps in, as she always does, to guide me. I mean, she's guiding everybody else on their spiritual path as well. A lot of times they're just not consciously aware that that's what's happening. And I say she because the Holy Spirit, that part of our DNA that awakens and connects us directly to Source, is a feminine essence. The original word that was used for the Holy Spirit is feminine. So technically, the Holy Trinity would say Father, Son, and Mother. Anyway, Spirit guided me to a website where I was introduced to the concept of shadow work, and I purchased their shadow work journal. The very first exercise in this journal was to sit in front of a mirror for 5 to 10 minutes or so, I don't remember, and just look at myself and tell myself, I love you. I love you. You're beautiful. I appreciate you. I couldn't do it. I just cried. I was shaking. It felt so uncomfortable. I could barely look at myself. And this was really shocking to me because I didn't realize until this exercise that I actually hated myself and I was ashamed of myself. Most people find this exercise hard if they're not actively practicing self-love, because we're taught that loving ourselves is vain and selfish, and we associate the mirror with judgment and improvement. Like, the only reason why we even have a mirror in the first place is to make sure we look okay. This is actually a really toxic thought process. We're supposed to be able to look in the mirror and like what we see. This is how the divine wants us to see ourselves. Self-love is the only doorway into true abundance. It's extremely important. It's not vain at all. This is how you maintain a healthy body, a healthy mind, a healthy life, right? Because the ways that you hate yourself, the ways that you judge yourself are dictating all of your experiences in your life, whether you realize it or not. If there are aspects of you that you don't think are worthy, then that's going to reflect in your opportunities, in your relationships, in your job, literally everything, where you live, all of it. It changes your life. But what's beautiful is that once I got used to looking in the mirror, I started to see parts of myself that I never noticed before, the hidden parts. I'm not going to get too deep into the specific experiences because you'll have to try this exercise yourself, but your face is going to start to change, and it scares people sometimes because it literally morphs into like really creepy things. These are just the hidden parts of you that have become warped and distorted because you have shoved them so deeply in there. Like, you can't cram something into this tiny little space and expect it to just like remain normal. The things that you're going to end up pulling out have been like tortured for years. You've been torturing them, parts of yourself. But there are also really beautiful parts of myself that I saw, like literally saw with my own eyes. So after the mirror exercise and slowly plucking away at the journal prompts, I started to become interested in art again. And soon I wasn't just looking in the mirror, I was dancing in front of the mirror, admiring my femininity, really loving and appreciating my body and its ability to have a child go through an extremely traumatic surgery and almost death experience and liver failure and stuff, and then fall into a deep depression where I can barely get out of bed, and dissociation, the splitting of my mind, and then somehow being able to come back into its wholeness and its strength again. I started to really appreciate my strength and resilience, which I always knew was there, but I could really see it now. I took my flute out of storage, which I hadn't played since high school, and I started playing that again. I started singing too, something I absolutely loved to do when I was younger. And I randomly became like super attached to the song Hallelujah by Pentatonics. And I started belting it out like in my car and in the kitchen and stuff. And I lived in an apartment at this time, and My neighbors in the complex were probably like, what is she doing? There's like music and dancing around and flutes. And my child's father hated Christmas music or anything religious. He was so against it. So I couldn't listen to Christmas music or anything joyful really for years without him making it miserable for me. So I just stopped listening to it. And by this point, I had endured 16 years of narcissistic abuse from 3 different partners. And so there was a lot of stuff that I had stopped doing due to their coercive control. I had no idea who I was anymore. And it took me years to remember. But slowly but surely, I started remembering things, and I'm still remembering things now. Old parts of me started returning through shadow work, particularly the artistic parts of me. And I would argue that the artistic parts of everybody will likely return through shadow work, because creation is what we were best at. It is a direct expression of truth and of God. Although my mother is very artistic and she encouraged artistic endeavors, only my brother's work was praised most of the time. And she consistently reinforced this idea that he was the artistic one and I was the smart one. But I was an average student at best. I would zone out during class and laugh at everything and stuff. I graduated high school with a 2.9 GPA. So this box that she put me in, which didn't line up with reality at all, was very confusing for me as a kid. I can't live up to this smart daughter expectation, but I'm also not allowed to be good at art, which is what I actually really like doing. I learned that I'm very good at drawing, photography, arts and crafts, writing, a wide range of other creative things, including making video content like this. I bought a bunch of colored pencils and I started drawing renditions of the spiritual downloads I was getting. This decoration right here on the wall, I made that out of my grandmother's doilies. Before this, I thought I sucked at crafts. I thought I couldn't make anything. If you're ever in a phase where you're like, I have no idea what to do with my life, I have no idea what I want out of my life anymore, and you can't figure out what lights you up, which is what I experienced for many years. If you're lucky enough to actually consciously be like, I want to remember what lights me up, because a lot of people, they just fall into the 9 to 5, the kids go to here and I have to go to the work, and there's no room for art and creativity, where we just have to do the things. It doesn't matter if nothing lights you up, because that's not what life is for. And I mean, we got it completely backwards, you guys. We're not here to work and then die. We're here to create stuff. That's why our souls chose to come here. Anyway, if you want to know what really lights you up and you can't remember who you are, look back on what you enjoyed when you were a child or a young teenager. That is likely the real you, before life told you that you couldn't be that person. And what did young me want to be before I grew up? Before I got it beaten out of me? I wanted to be a singer and a teacher. And what do you know? I am now using my voice, speaking my truth, and teaching spiritual concepts on YouTube. So that wraps it up. I hope it was helpful. More to come. I love all of you. Goodbye.